The Mueller hearing was a total disaster for the DemonRats. In case you missed it, here are some clips from Dan Bongino that spell it out. The funny, but actually hilarious part is that the DemonRats see it as a win for them. They're smoking too much of that wacky tobacco. And not for nothing, after watching this, I don't believe that Bob Mueller had anything to do with writing the report that bears his name. It has to be that this man was compromised and used as a puppet. There are allegations that he is the son of the Nazi SS commander, but I have seen no proof. He is a Vietnam veteran, and for that, at least, deserves respect. All will come out in the wash, folks. Buckle up, get the popcorn, and enjoy the show. You just can't make this shit up.
So, Johnny Ratcliffe knocks it out of the park. Republican member from Texas, John Ratcliffe, absolutely destroys Mueller in this clip. Let me set it up for you as I've done with these prior clips. Ratcliffe is puzzled in this clip why Bob Mueller is setting a new standard of justice. Ladies and gentlemen, it's bizarre that Mueller's report, his standard for justice is, I am not going to exonerate Trump on obstruction, but I don't have evidence to prosecute a case. Folks, think about how innocent until proven guilty gets thrown out if that is the new standard. If the police department were to put out a press release saying that they thought Joe Armacost robbed a bank, they're not going to prosecute him for robbing the bank. They don't have enough evidence to prosecute him for robbing a bank. And therefore, they think Joe may have robbed the bank, but they're not going to prosecute Joe for robbing a bank. What do you think would happen to that police department? The answer, folks, is they would be sued into oblivion by any entrepreneurial lawyer who would bankrupt that local city or town that did that. Why? Because we don't put out derogatory information in law enforcement about people we don't charge. Ladies and gentlemen, why is that? This is what you're not getting in the mainstream media. Again, having been a federal agent and a cop, I'm going to explain to you why. Because a lot of times, ladies and gentlemen, when you're investigating cases, facts emerge that may make people look guilty. Those people may not have, in fact, committed a crime. They may have been unwitting, meaning they didn't know they were involved in some kind of a conspiracy. They may have been present at a crime scene, had no involvement at all. Or they may have been under duress themselves when they were forced to do things like in a hostage situation or something like that. There are multiple reasons why a fact pattern would make someone look guilty when in fact they weren't. I can't use this example enough. If I have evidence Joe came home on a Tuesday with a bag of money, and I also have evidence that Joe was in a bank, this is a fact pattern. And I also have a fact pattern indicating the bank Joe was in was robbed. And I put that out in a report, and I don't charge Joe. Why would I not charge Joe? Because we have a videotape of someone else robbing the bank, and Joe was just making a deposit for his business. What the Democrats are conflating, Joe, again, ombudsman hat on, is they're conflating a fact pattern and evidence of a crime. Because Joe fits a fact pattern, was in the bank, withdrew money, does not mean it's evidence Joe committed the crime. We have evidence someone else did it. If I leave that evidence out that someone else did it, that exonerates Trump, out of my report, and I go on the media and say, well, I have a series of facts indicating Joe may have committed a crime, we're not going to charge him, you would be sued to kingdom come.
You bet, baby.
That is why, thank you, prosecutors do not do this. John Ratcliffe, who was a United States attorney and prosecutor for the government, in this clip, absolutely nails Mueller to the wall for his ridiculous not guilty standard in his report. Check this out.
Now, in explaining that special counsel did not make what you called a traditional prosecution or declination decision, the report on the bottom of page 2 of volume 2 reads as follows. The evidence we obtained about the president's actions and intent presents difficult issues that prevent us from conclusively determining that no criminal conduct occurred. Accordingly, while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. Now, I read that correctly?
Yes.
All right. Now, your report, and today you said at all times the special counsel team operated under, was guided by, and followed Justice Department policies and principles. So, which DOJ policy or principle sets forth a legal standard that an investigated person is not exonerated if their innocence from criminal conduct is not conclusively determined.
Can you repeat the last part of that question?
Yeah. Which DOJ policy or principle set forth a legal standard that an investigated person is not exonerated if their innocence from criminal conduct is not conclusively determined? Where does that language come from, Director? Where is the DOJ policy that says that? Let me make it easier.
Go ahead.
Can you give me an example other than Donald Trump where the Justice Department determined that an investigated person was not exonerated because their innocence was not conclusively determined?
I cannot, but this is a unique situation.
Well, you can't. Time is short. I've got 5 minutes. Let's just leave it at you can't find it because I'll tell you why. It doesn't exist.
Oh, man. You know, Joe, your responses today have been spot on, and you're right. This is sad, folks. I mean, this really is. This is a man who had I'm not going to say an impeccable reputation. Mueller's been involved in some real fiascos with the FBI, so let's not be too laudatory. But a guy who, I guess, thanks to his service to the country, had a decent reputation. It's over. Absolutely. He can't answer any question. Ratcliffe just absolutely fillets his credibility here. Couple highlights from that clip, what the takeaways are and why this matters. Not guilty is not a standard, as I just laid out. No need to go over that again. Fact patterns do not mean evidence of a crime. That's why we don't do this. Second takeaway, DOJ policy, Department of Justice, for the liberals who don't understand acronyms, is crystal clear that you do not issue derogatory information about American citizens if you are not going to prosecute them for a crime. It is crystal clear. Ratcliffe says to him, is there any other person that you would have done this with? Because can you cite to me DOJ policy that says not guilty or you're not going to exonerate him? Can you cite where that DOJ policy is? Mueller, of course he can't, because Mueller made it up for Donald Trump specifically. Now, Mueller's pathetic attempt at an answer is key, folks. And I'm going to knock and slam this thing down in 2 seconds flat. He says, well, this was a unique situation. No, it isn't. 10 yards, holding Bob Mueller, repeat first down. Not true. Whoa. Joe, what has been the Democrats' party line throughout this entire thing? That this is not a unique situation. Nobody is above the law. The law treats everybody equal. No, it doesn't. It doesn't treat everybody equally. DOJ policy, the law, their regulations, promulgated and accepted by the executive branch, are clear as day that you don't crap all over American citizens and then not charge them with a crime. No, it's not unique. That has not been your point. Your point has been the opposite. Everybody's treated fairly under the law. Well, we're going to treat Donald Trump differently because it's unique. Why is it unique? He's an American citizen. So him you get to crap on. That is bullshit, and you know it. Journal piece again, which I hope to get to later, lays out this by these important points why obstruction doesn't exist. But there's another op-ed by this guy, Tom Baker, and he asks a fantastic question. He says, someone needs to ask Bob Mueller, basically, what were you prevented from doing if you thought the president committed a crime? What were you prevented from doing? If you think the president, there's evidence of obstruction, what stopped you? What an awesome question. Here's a 10-second clip or less of Collins kind of hinting at the same thing, and Mueller, again, just folding like a cheap suit here. Here you go.
At any time with the investigation, was your investigation curtailed or stopped or hindered?
No. I don't. Okay. I thought this was an obstruction. So it's an obstruction case where nothing was obstructed. Did I miss that? So let me just be clear on this. So there's a collusion case that the whole investigation is based on a Steele dossier collusion theory that even Mueller thoroughly discredits. That's debunked. So you're investigating a crime you acknowledge didn't happen, And then you purport an obstruction theory you would have prosecuted the president on, although you just acknowledged to Doug Collins there was no obstruction. Did I miss that? Could we play that again? Is that even possible? I'm not even sure.
At any time with the investigation, was your investigation curtailed or stopped?
Here we go again for the second time. I don't get it. This is unfathomable. And yet the liberals listening, I just played that for you twice, will still be convinced there's an obstruction case here. Did he obstruct you? No, not at all. Yeah, but we got an obstruction case. Why didn't you charge it? OLC. Yeah, but that's not what you told Bill Barr. You said it wasn't OLC. I don't really know. Does this guy have an answer for anything?
Good morning, Director. If you'll let me quickly summarize your opening statement this morning. You said in Volume 1 on the issue of conspiracy, the special counsel determined that the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. And then in Volume 2, for reasons that you explained, the special counsel did not make a determination on whether there was an obstruction of justice crime committed by the president. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, in explaining that special counsel did not make what you called a traditional prosecution or declination decision, the report on the bottom of page 2 of volume 2 reads as follows. The evidence we obtained about the president's actions and intent presents difficult issues that prevent us from conclusively determining that no criminal conduct occurred. Accordingly, while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. Now, I read that correctly?
Yes.
All right. Now, your report, and today you said at all times the special counsel team operated under, was guided by, and followed Justice Department policies and principles. So which DOJ policy or principle sets forth a legal standard that an investigated person is not exonerated if their innocence from criminal conduct is not conclusively determined?
Can you repeat the last part of that question?
Yeah. Which DOJ policy or principle set forth a legal standard that an investigated person is not exonerated if their innocence from criminal conduct is not conclusively determined? Where does that language come from, Director? Where is the DOJ policy that says that? Can you, let me make it easier.
Sorry, go ahead.
Can you give me an example other than Donald Trump where the Justice Department determined that an investigated person was not exonerated because their innocence was not conclusively determined?
I cannot, but this is a unique situation.
Okay, well, you can't. Time is short. I've got 5 minutes. Let's just leave it at you can't find it because I'll tell you why. It doesn't exist. The special counsel's job, nowhere does it say that you were to conclusively determine Donald Trump's innocence or that the special counsel report should determine whether or not to exonerate him. It's not in any of the documents. It's not in your appointment order. It's not in the special counsel regulations. It's not in the OLC opinions. It's not in the Justice Manual, and it's not in the principles of federal prosecution. Nowhere do those words appear together because respectfully, Director, it was not the special counsel's job to conclusively determine Donald Trump's innocence or to exonerate him.
Director, the FBI interviewed Joseph Mifsud on February 10th, 2017. In that interview, Mr. Mifsud lied. You point this out on page 193, volume 1. Mifsud denied. Mifsud also falsely stated. In addition, Mifsud omitted. 3 times he lied to the FBI, yet you didn't charge him with the crime.
Excuse me, did you say one? I'm sorry, did you say 193?
Volume 1, 193. He lied 3 times. You pointed out in the report. Why didn't you charge him with the crime?
I can't get into internal deliberations with regard who would or would not be.
Charge a lot of other people for making false statements. Let's remember this. Let's remember this. In 2016, the FBI did something they probably haven't done before. They spied on 2 American citizens associated with a presidential campaign, George Papadopoulos and Carter Page. With Carter Page, they went to the FISA court. They used the now famous dossier as part of the reason they were able to get the warrant and spy on Carter Page for a better part of a year. With Mr. Papadopoulos, they didn't go to the court. They used human sources. All kinds of, from about the moment Papadopoulos joins the Trump campaign, you got all these people all around the world starting to swirl around him. Names like Halper, Downer, Mifsud, Thompson, meeting in Rome, London, all kinds of places. The FBI even sent a lady posing as somebody else, went by the name Azra Turk, even dispatched her to London to spy on Mr. Papadopoulos. In one of these meetings, Mr. Papadopoulos is talking to a foreign diplomat, and he tells the diplomat, Russians have dirt on Clinton. That diplomat then contacts the FBI, and the FBI opens an investigation based on that fact. You point this out on page 1 of the report. July 31st, 2016, they open the investigation based on that piece of information. Diplomat tells Papadopoulos, Russians have dirt, Papadopoulos tells a diplomat, Russians have dirt on Clinton. Diplomat tells the FBI. What I'm wondering is, who told Papadopoulos? How'd he find out?
I can't get into the evidentiary.
Yes, you can, because you wrote about it. You gave us the answer. Page 192 of the report, you tell us who told him. Joseph Mifsud. Joseph Mifsud's a guy who told Papadopoulos. The mysterious professor who lives in Rome and London, teaches in 2 different universities. This is the guy who told Papadopoulos. He's the guy who starts it all. And when the FBI interviews him, he lies 3 times, and yet you don't charge him with a crime. You charge Rick Gates for false statements. You charge Paul Manafort for false statements. You charge Michael Cohen with false statements. You charge Michael Flynn, a 3-star general, with false statements. But the guy who puts the country through this whole saga, starts it all for 3 years we've lived this now, he lies, and you guys don't charge him. And I'm curious as to why.
Well, I can't get into it, and it's obvious, I think, that we can't get into charging decisions.
When the FBI interviewed him in February, FBI interviews him in February, when the special counsel's office interviewed Mifsud, did he lie to you guys too?
Can't get into that.
Did you interview Mifsud?
Can't get into that.
Is Mifsud Western intelligence or Russian intelligence?
Can't get into that.
A lot of things you can't get into. What's interesting, you can charge 13 Russians no one's ever heard of, no one's ever seen, no one's ever going to hear of them, no one's ever going to see them. You can charge them. You can charge all kinds of people who are around the president with false statements. But the guy who launches the guy who puts this whole story in motion, you can't charge him. I think that's amazing.
I'm not certain I agree with your characterizations.
Well, I'm reading from your report. Mifsud told Papadopoulos. Papadopoulos tells the diplomat tells the FBI opens the investigation July 31st, 2016, and here we are 3 years later, July of 2019, the country's been put through this, and the central figure who launches it all lies to us, and you guys don't hunt him down and interview him again, and you don't charge him with a crime. Now, here's the good news. Here's the good news. The president was falsely accused of conspiracy. The FBI does a 10-month investigation, and James Comey, when we deposed him a year ago, told us at that point they had nothing. You do a 22-month investigation. At the end of that 22 months, you find no conspiracy. And what's the Democrats want to do? They want to keep investigating. They want to keep going. Maybe a better course of action is to figure out how the false accusation started. Maybe it's to go back and actually figure out why Joseph Mifsud was lying to the FBI. And here's the good news. Here's the good news. That's exactly what Bill Barr's doing. And thank goodness for that. That's exactly what the Attorney General and John Durham are doing. They're going to find out why we went through this three-year saga and get to the bottom of it.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
So Mueller, as predicted, relied almost exclusively on the 448-page report, saying more than 200 times he couldn't or wouldn't answer questions. But tonight, Democrats say their fight is far from over. In fact, it's just beginning. Joining me to answer that is President Trump's personal attorney, Jay Sekulow. Jay, long day. Great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's start with Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Yes. She showed up for the post-hearing press conference this afternoon, and she had this sign we wanted to put up for people, and she said it proves her point. She says all this money that they recovered in going after people, 37 people charged with different crimes, 25 ongoing criminal investigations, 7 people convicted. She says a lot has been done and much more is to come.
Yeah, well, if you look at the money that they recovered, what was it for? Tax evasion, bank fraud, had nothing to do with campaigning, had nothing to do with the president, had nothing to do with the president's campaign. It was literally tax fraud cases and bank fraud cases. So I get what they're saying. Look, I mean, she went up there, the speaker, with due respect, and tried to put a happy face on a very damaging day, because every network around the country most of the commentators acknowledged that this was a bad day for those that were trying to raise an issue of culpability or impeachment or whatever you want to, however they want to phrase it. I think the reality what set in was, and the president said this, I think, really well, and that is it's very difficult to defend the indefensible. And that report, and I've said it on your broadcast before, was incoherent from page 1 till the very end. It made no legal sense. That whole exoneration thing is absurd. You're a lawyer. I mean, prosecutors don't exonerate. Not only do they not exonerate, a jury, when you're acquitted, in other words, you're found not guilty.
Not guilty is different.
You're not exonerated. So I don't even know why Bob put that in there. I have no. Why did he allow his staff to put in a phrase that they knew, had to know, was going to cause so much consternation within the lawyers that actually practice law in this area?
And it's something that came up quite a bit today.
Yeah.
And the man who would launch impeachment hearings, the House Judiciary Chair, Nadler, this is what he had to say, saying it was a good day for Democrats. Here's what he said.
Mueller made clear that the president is not exonerated. Mueller found evidence of obstruction of justice and abuses of power by the president. He said, the report said the president could be indicted for obstruction of justice after he leaves office.
What about that?
Well, the whole thing about can a president be indicted after they leave office? If you rob a bank, you could be indicted. Okay, so that's like it's a meaningless statement. What they are not reporting in their press statement was when Bob Mueller had to go back and correct himself about this whole why did you not move forward with the recommendation of indictment?
Was
Originally
it that your hands were tied, or is it that you didn't find a crime?
And he initially said it was the Office of Legal Counsel opinion. You can't indict a sitting president. They came back and said, well, that's actually not correct. I need to correct the record. We never determined any conclusions on culpability. That's because in his report, which everybody ignores, he says it's difficult questions of law and fact. And you know this as a lawyer. When you have difficult questions of law and fact, guess what you don't do? Bring a case. So that's what this was. And I think that, Bob had to correct himself. He did. To his credit, he did. But I think, look, I don't see how anybody can put this as a win for anyone other than the president and, frankly, the country, because I think the country's enough of this. I think that's why it doesn't come up in conversations.
But members of the House, Democrats say it's not over. A couple of them talked to our chief producer on Capitol Hill over there, Chad Pergram. You probably know him well.
Sure.
Congresswoman Madeline Dean and Congressman David Cicilline. She said this is not over. It's just begun. That's what she told Chad. He said this is not the end. It's only the beginning. They say that they have all of these other probes going on, and they're going to call other people.
So what about they're going to have?
Go.
Let's say what they have a probe on. They had a probe on emoluments, except they lost that in court now twice. Okay, they've got a probe on tax returns, which if you think about it, where in the Constitution does it say that to run for office you have to release your tax returns? It doesn't. So and that whole theory of how they are trying to get the tax return, that'll be litigated. They had Bob Mueller today, the architect, supposedly, of the Mueller report. This was the witness. This was going to be the game-changing moment. And what was it? It was a game-changing moment, all right, that this is done. I've been saying case closed. I think this just reiterates case closed.
Okay. Well, some of your adversaries on the Hill are not done yet, but it keeps you very busy as we talk about there's a new case every day.
Yeah, every day.
All right, Jay.
Thanks,
for
Shannon.
stopping by.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Please subscribe to our backup channels, Whirlwind Revolt, Inglorious Patriots, and Net for Truth USA 2 Patriot channel. You can also find us at Net for Truth USA on BitChute. We fly so close to the target, we're on our 4th fighter jet. We will be relentless truth seekers until the enemies of freedom are defeated. You can support this channel by using the links in the description, but for a $100 donation, I will personally send you a autographed hardcover special edition copy of Land of Childhood's Fears. Also, visit my bookstore at lulu.com/net4truth USA. If you are viewing this video on BitChute, you can use the links in the description to support us, or simply click the green $ dot on our video to support this channel. Thank you. Links are in the description section.